Did you know that you have better odds at winning the lottery than Olympic medal? Bring home one of those coveted medals or achieve any major personal goal in life. You need a lot more than luck. You need a game plan. Well, let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because there's wanting to achieve challenging goals and there's accomplishing these challenging goals. And we're going to talk about the latter.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Want to hear from someone who accomplishes goals? At the Olympic Winter Games in Nagano, Japan, today's guest, Nikki Stone, became America's first ever Olympic champion in the popular and electrifying sport of aerial skiing. What made this performance so unbelievable was the fact that less than 2 years earlier, a chronic spinal injury prevented Nikki from standing, much less skiing, off a 12-foot tall snow jump that launches aerialists 50 feet into the air. Her tenacity and refusal to step down from a challenge brought Nikki back to the top of freestyle skiing podium, despite 10 doctors telling her it wouldn't be possible. Nikki is a highly sought-after, award-winning public speaker as well as a best-selling author of the book, When Turtles Fly, Secrets of Successful People Who Know How to Stick Their Necks Out. Well, you sure did. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Nikki.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And I want to dive right in with you. So we all have dreams. I got dreams, but let's start with yours. When did you first have dreams of going to Olympic Games?
Well, I remember when I was 5 years old, I saw Nadia Comaneci, gymnast, score a perfect 10 in gymnastics. I ran into my living room, put some tables and chairs together, and made my own Olympic podium. And I remember standing on top of this podium and telling my parents I wanted to win the Olympics someday. And they asked me, do you know what it means to win the Olympics? And I said, no, but I want to be the best in the world. And I know that's what happens when you win the Olympics. And they sat me down and they told me about a philosophy for success. And they said, if you want to be a champion in everyone, you want to have success, you have to be like a turtle. And they called it the turtle effect. They said, in order to be successful, you have to be soft on the inside, you have to have a hard shell, and you have to be willing to stick your neck out. And so throughout my career, I followed this tactic, and something that I use in life now, in the business I do now, is that soft inside is the passion for what you do. That hard shell is your focus, commitment, and that ability to overcome adversities. And to stick your neck out, you need to make sure that you take the risks, you have the confidence, and you have the teamwork to make sure that you follow through. And so this is a philosophy I used throughout my entire career, and it helped me find that success. And I always say that I got to use that turtle effect to find ways that I can reach my goals. And that's how the dream was born.
And that's how you explained your book cover to me also, because I was looking at your book and I was like, there's a turtle on this book. I know there's a connection here. So thanks for closing that loop for me. You know, Nikki, I'll tell you, it's not a turtle effect, but as a speaker, and I know you're a professional speaker, I have cufflinks that I frequently wear if I'm in a more formal situation. We don't wear those suits and ties so much anymore, but still have my Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin cufflinks. And Jerry, I'm left-handed, is on my left side. That's the humor side. But if all you are is funny, you're not much of a professional speaker, you're not really going to inspire. You'll entertain, but that'll wear off. If all you are is message, just kind of serious, well, good, but you're going to have trouble holding. I think what made that duo amazingly successful and what we need to do is combine those skills. I like the way you've taken it to the turtle. Yours is a little bit more diverse, but it's really interesting. Let's stay on this. I know you had a lot of hurdles. I nicked a few of them in the bio. Talk to me a little bit about, because there's a lot of people that are setting goals and they have hurdles too. What were some of the biggest hurdles on your path to that podium of yours?
Yeah, so I learned some great lessons from my injuries. And I certainly had hurdles that I didn't make it to my first Olympics. I didn't make it to finals in those Olympics. And there were some great lessons that I learned there. But I think the biggest hurdle to build that hard shell that I needed was this spinal injury I had. And I went through this injury. I was ranked third in the world at the time, or excuse me, first in the world at the time. And I went to take a jump and I felt this pain in my lower back from a muscle spasm that wouldn't go away. And I was going into finals in Oberhof, Germany, and the girl that was pulling up on me in first place was a girl from Canada, and she didn't make it to finals. So I knew it was my chance to be able to make sure I extended that lead. And so I went up to my coach. I said, I don't know how many jumps I can do. But he said, you have to do them in the practice if you want to do them in the competition. So I went out to the hill, went to take my first practice jump, and it felt like someone came up and stabbed me in my lower back.
Mm.
And I was managed to get around to my feet, skied to the bottom of the hill and collapsed. And a physical therapist came over to me and said, what's wrong? And I said, this muscle spasm's back. I need a little time to see if it'll calm down. Well, half an hour went by very quickly, and he came back over to me and said, there's 5 minutes left of training. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to jump. And so I was able to get back up by, he had to lift me up since I couldn't bend forward in order to stand up, and went down the hill for a second time. And this time I had tears streaming down my face. And when I hit the apex of the jump, it felt like I had 10 knives stabbing me on my lower back. And I don't know how, but when your life's in jeopardy, your body goes into autopilot. And I managed to get around to my feet, but collapsed right on impact, slid to the bottom of the hill, and found I couldn't move more than 2 inches in any direction.
Oh.
And it took me 3 days to get home. I went and saw doctors, and they all told me it wasn't a muscle spasm, but it was something called internal disc disruption. And it's like shaking an egg. The inside of it becomes scrambled, but it has cracks in it. It's leaking fluids. And these 2 eggs were like the 2 discs in my back. And so it was an enormous challenge. I had 10 doctors tell me that I would never ski again. And it was a really challenging path in order to come back. And the one thing that helped me get through it was a quote by General George S. Patton that I still use today. And it's, success is how high you bounce after you hit rock bottom. And I asked myself, and I ask my audiences, if success is how high you bounce after you hit rock bottom, do you want to have a soft inner shell like a cotton ball, or do you want a hard shell that will be able to bounce back? And I realized that I had to be strong, and I would take a super ball with me as this visual reminder. And I give all my attendees super balls so they can make sure that they bounce back, and they're looking forward to knowing that if they stay strong, they are going to be able to come back. And it's that positive attitude that I needed in order to push through past this pain to be able to jump again, because I had to build up the muscles in my back to support those injured discs in order to be jumping again.
Wow. And I don't think there's a person listening who hasn't had a touch of back pain, a day of sciatica issues, something that lets us know a fraction of what you were feeling. And we weren't jumping 50 feet in the air,
Yeah.
upside down. God
that
knows
was the
what's
biggest
going on
challenge.
up there. You do. I don't.
Right,
But
going 50 feet in the air after you have this spinal injury. And my injury was actually from landings. The compression over time was what caused that injury. And I realized that I had to make some way of coming back from this. And one great thing that I was able to do is I also studied sports psychology for my master's degree. And we did this exercise where you hold your arms out to the side and someone tries to push your arms down.
right.
And you have to think about something negative in your life. And I remember I was holding my arms out as I was doing this, and my mom was going through cancer. And I tried to resist the person pushing my arms down, and they fell right away. All I was thinking about is the cancer, everything she's going through. And I felt defeated. And they had us do it again, hold our arms out to the side, and think about something positive in your life. And I thought about how our family was going to be closer. I thought about how she has great support behind her. She has incredible doctors. She's a strong woman. She's going to come back from this, and it's going to give her an incredible story. And the person tried to push down my arms, and they couldn't get them down. And I realized that in our lives, we have to have this positivity. And in study upon study upon study in sports psychology, they realized that you're not only more successful physically, but mentally, emotionally, you're more productive when you're positive. So in sports psychology, we have something called thought stopping. And you have a positive thought, whether it be thinking of something with a child. Maybe your child is important to you and they give you that inspiration. Maybe it's just the word win or an image in your head of you having success. No matter what it is, if you use that in those moments where you're spiraling down and think about that positive thought, it's going to help you be able to replenish, to build yourself, to have that positivity so that you have the strength to be able to come back and knock out those negative thoughts.
Um, I, I can see why the Bank of America's and corporate clients would want you swinging in on a keynote now and then. Very, very inspirational, Nikki. I'm going to give you a crazy quote right now, but I heard it on all places, the Howard Stern show when he was interviewing Carol Burnett, if you can believe it. And Carol was talking about something, and she said, Howard, the body doesn't know when the mind is acting. And I happen to be a big fan of what you're talking about, and I'm working with salespeople or coaching. A lot of it's in their head. And I've never seen anybody who, if you've gotten those the last 10 times you picked up the call of the phone, yeah, I can understand what's going on in your head. But what if we took our mind to a place 2 years earlier where everybody was saying yes? And now pick up the phone or get on the Zoom call or go see that client. You can't tell me that wouldn't increase your chances of success. So I really think it's people undervalue what you're saying, which is just how powerful the mind can be. Anyway, I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. It's so powerful. And when you get to the Olympics, everyone is at that same level.
Yeah.
They all have the ability to be there. But to be able to perform in that key moment, it all takes what's up here. And
Yeah.
so there's probably 1% of the people that go to the Olympics that are able to perform. And so it's having that right mindset, having that positivity, knowing that you can make this happen, that really pushes you ahead of everyone else.
Where were you in your career, Nikki, when all this happened? Because I was looking you up online, and that wasn't your only medal. You've got a slew of awards and victories and all sorts of games along the line there. Where were you in that path of your career when this particular injury occurred?
Well, I was leading upward. My first Olympics, as I said, I didn't make it to finals. I
Hmm.
really had a challenging time there. I realized it was important to make sure that I focused on my goals and the steps that I needed rather than all the distractions going on around me. And I did that by preparing ahead of time for the things that could go wrong.
Right.
And so that Olympics didn't go well, but I came back the next year and I was a world champion. I won, let's see, I think it was 15 World Cups. I was on the podium something like 30 times, and I'd won a number of national championships and 2-year-long tours. And so I really was projected to do incredibly well when that injury happened. And it was an enormous setback. And I really had to reset and change my way of thinking because I couldn't perform like I did in the past.
Hmm.
I couldn't go out there and take as many jumps. And so I had to be smart about my training and go out there and use a lot of visualization. There's so much that we can gain from visualization of planning ahead, thinking about the things that could go wrong, thinking about how you can do things perfectly so that you can go out there and perform it in that key moment.
Yeah. All right, I've got one more question about that. Then we'll switch over to some business questions. But for me, and I'd like to think I'm sort of the average Joe who's had that dream, but didn't follow through with it for one reason or another. But part of that dream was hearing the anthem. Is it as beautiful as it looks?
It was amazing. And I don't think it was until I listened to that anthem play that I realized how much support I had around me.
Hmm.
I thought about all the people that wished me luck and that they were going to be supporting me there at the games. I thought about my family, my friends, the people that were, on the bus with me saying, "Oh, I can't wait to watch you at the Olympics." And thought of them as I was standing on the podium and everyone in my country that was pushing me. And I'm listening to my anthem play for my country and is about my performance that I had done. And it was such a moving moment. And I get emotional when I hear the anthem play for other athletes that are on the podium. So to hear it play for me, I couldn't help but have the tears well up in my eyes. And I thought back to that little freckle faced pigtail girl who made her own Olympic podium out of tables and chairs and realized this is the real deal. This is
Yeah.
what I've put the sacrifices in for. This is what the blood, sweat, and tears were for. We're this moment standing on the podium listening to my anthem play.
Yeah. It's a question that's asked a lot of just at bars and things of the classic, which would you rather? A Super Bowl victory, a World Series victory, a Stanley Cup victory, a gold medal victory. And I've actually never met anybody who didn't say, "Oh, the gold medal." And
Really?
partial, oh yeah, and partially to be able to stand there and watch that flag go up and hear your
I think
anthem.
it's prestigious too in the
Yeah,
fact that it only happens once every 4 years.
yeah,
You have a Stanley Cup every year, you have a Super Bowl every year, you have a World Series every year, but the Olympics only happens once every 4 years. And if you don't do well, you have to wait another 4 years.
yeah.
And with my spinal injury, I didn't have another 4 years. This was going
Right.
to be my last shot. And so that's why it was so incredibly rewarding for me to be able to achieve that goal when I was under that pressure.
Mm, mm. The hair is standing up on the edge of my arms. All right, let's take it. Let's move over to the business side a little bit. So you're back. You decide, you're going to become an author, a speaker. How is this carried over to the way you run that business of yours, or you take that stage as a motivational speaker?
Yeah, so there was so much that I learned through my sports career, and I owe everything to that sports career. And when I see kids in sports and the parents are upset that their kid didn't do well at the local soccer game and their kid didn't perform or didn't get the score that they wanted at an ice skating championships, I tell these people that it's not about those medals. It's not about the rewards. It's about every lesson that they're getting along the way. The chance that they are going to be Olympic champion is probably slim, but what they gain throughout their sports career is something that you can't replace. And so throughout my career now, I make sure I use those turtle effect gems that I received. And I make sure that I have passion. I love what I'm doing. I make sure that I have the focus. I have to make sure that I'm looking at the skills that I have, knock out the different distractions that are going on around me. And I have to make sure that I have that ability to overcome adversity, plan ahead for the adversities, think positively, to be able to take risks, to try something new. Like I was actually afraid of heights and aerials, and it really taught me how to make sure that I can take calculated risks in my life and to build up that confidence and to make sure that I didn't have fears for what I was doing, to have that confidence, because there were so many valuable lessons that I learned, and having the confidence to be able to do it was really key. Because if you don't have that, it's just not going to happen. And
Right.
then lastly, having the teamwork to make sure that I had a team behind me, no matter if I was in an individual sport or not. You need that support system in order to have success.
Yeah. And you gave us, a moment ago, I think you gave us a fabulous reminder, which is that visualization going from an Olympian or an athlete who visualizes success or visualizes what's about to happen to a person who's carrying a bag, walking out to see that client and visualizing what that's going to look like and visualizing that level of success. I think that's, a key piece. Uh, I'm going somewhere with this. Do you have a favorite sports movie?
I like Miracle a lot.
Yeah,
With the 80 hockey team, I actually know a lot of the players. I think that coach was brilliant.
yeah,
He was so good and so valuable to those athletes, and having them build that teamwork, that support system. And it's something that I feel that I always have teamwork, as I said, behind me. Week before I won my medal, Johnny Mosley won the gold medal in mogul skiing. And in freestyle, it encompasses aerials and moguls.
right,
And I thought to myself, Johnny can do this. Why can't I? We
right,
train together. We go out there and lift weights together. We go run together. If he can do this, why can't I? And when I was competing in the finals, my teammates were all at the bottom of the hill and they were depressed, even though they didn't make finals. And they were still there supporting me. And this is something that I've learned in my personal life, is that we have to have that teamwork. We have to have the support system. And you're only going to be as good as the people around you. And so to surround yourself with the people that are going to make you a better person. And so I always make sure that I have that great support system. I make sure that I'm a good leader, to be able to push people forward, because you can't do it without that team.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. You watch even golfers who, for me, I think of what could there be a sport that is more solitary, that really is just the one person. And the first thing they'll say is my team. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's a trainer. Oh, there's a nutritionist. Oh, there's the caddy. Oh, there's people scouting out the course. Uh, there's a massive team behind
Right.
that
Right.
person swinging a golf club. And we never even associate with that. But
Right.
they're
And
there.
that's so true. That's so true. And even our coach actually, they will call to us while we're in the air.
Hmm.
And so we have to make corrections off what they
Oh,
say.
wow.
And so I'm basically putting my life in my coach's hands. And I have to have a great trust for him. And it really taught me how to have trust in the people that were leading me and people that I was leading, because without that trust, you're not going to have that path to success.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I asked you that question about the movies. Talk to me tomorrow. I'll have a different movie. There's change a little bit in my head. But I was a Rocky fan, and there was a part I didn't like and a part I did like. Obviously, I
Right.
really liked the part about him just keep getting up, keep getting up, get knocked down, keep getting up. That any athlete, and I had my share of athletic ability of moves. I wasn't an Olympian, but played some fairly high level basketball, some other like. But love that. The part, and it's obscure, and nobody remembers it but me. The part I didn't like was at one point, like right before the night before, he looks and he says, I know I can't win. And I was sort of, as an athlete, disappointed. It's like, well, if you
Right.
quit me, talk about it, win. We always have, there's a term called a boxer's chance. You had that, isn't it? When you take to the mountain, you have a boxer's chance. You have that one punch. But I was always thought, well, I would have loved to talk to the writer and said, get that out of the script. We don't need
Yeah.
that. He has
Right.
a
Agree.
chance and he's not going to quit. And that's the way I want to take every competition slash business opportunity,
Yeah. I
you
agree.
know? Uh,
It's
yeah.
funny that you say, a boxing movie, because one of the greatest lessons I learned about pushing myself forward was from Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
And I met him at an event, and I asked him if he had any tips for success. And he said one thing to me. He said, "Do you have your goals in your pocket?"
Huh.
And I'm someone who prides myself on writing my goals down, knowing what they are, but I certainly didn't have them with me in my pocket. But I did know what he meant, but we can pull them out at any time and remind ourselves of what we're striving for. And it's not till you put pen to paper and put it close to your heart and actually wear that accountability in order to have that success. And so it's something that I still do to this day, is that I make sure I have my goals. I pin them up on the mirror. I always tell people to go out there and put it on Facebook, because if you're willing to put your name to your goals, you're going to push forward to make sure it happens. So it was that lesson that I learned from Muhammad Ali, to make sure that I was always getting back up each time and pushing myself forward.
Oh, that's a great reminder. I I've always wanted to create a button because I mentor some authors from time to time, and I want on that button to say, "Ask me about my book." Because there's a lot of people that they dream about writing a book, think about writing a book, but they almost don't want to tell anybody because guess what's going to happen if I start telling people I'm going to have to write a book? And
Right.
so to have that button out there, A, not only keeps you accountable, but B, which is really nice, it does elicit conversation. And when you look at that button on me and go, oh, Rob, all right, I'll ask you about your book and I begin to lay it out. You're a writer too, Nikki. How many times
Right.
did you think, okay, I'll talk about it for a second, and walk away going, huh, with three notes in your hand to add to your outline to make sure just by having a conversation at the supermarket while you were putting, groceries on the belt. But you never know. You have to talk about it. And you can't be afraid to share those goals. I think it's instinct versus logic. The instinct is to want to keep it private. Logic says, let it out there. You have a much better chance of success.
You do. You do. You have to make sure you're accountable to your goals.
All right, let's talk about failure. All right, we all have, a level of fear of failure. And certainly for salespeople who and we have a lot of salespeople listening, every day it can go one way or the other. When you take the stage as a professional speaker, I know you're giving 100%. I do too. But if we give 100 talks in a year, one was the most amazing, one just didn't happen, and 98 are somewhere in the middle. The mindset is always to empty the tank. But Talk about how you overcome fear and maybe translate that a little bit to just somebody who's not going to go to get onto a podium, but is getting ready of really the fear of the unknown, getting ready to walk into something they can't control. How do you do it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm afraid of heights. And so it was an enormous risk for me to do a trick where I had to go 50 feet in the air. And something that helped me was a quote my grandmother gave me when I was growing up that says, the brave do not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all.
Hmm.
And I always told myself that I want to live. I don't want to have regrets in my life. And so I had to push myself. If I didn't win a medal, then I didn't win it. I wasn't shooting for fourth place at the Olympics. I wasn't shooting for a medal. I was shooting to win. And I had to make sure that I was going out there and taking that risk. And for me, it helped to take calculated risks, to weigh out the pros and the cons. I tell my audiences, if there was a burning building behind me and I asked you to run in that burning building, how many people would want to run in? And no one wants to run in a burning building. But if their children were in the building, or their parents were in the building, or their significant other was in the building, they would want to take that chance to actually run in, as long as they weren't nagging them the night before. But it really helps you weigh out, what's worth our taking these risks. And if it's worth it, then give yourself that chance. Because, as Wayne Gretzky says, we miss 100% of the shots we never take. So you at least have to take the shot in order to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You, do- I can tell you've delivered this message from time to time. Uh, it's weird. And I've only mentioned this, I think, once in 4 or 5 years, but there was a sports article of all things, a sports writer buried this into a sports column, and I went, wow. And he was talking about hope, Nikki, and he said, we can never be afraid to hope. And
Mhm.
sometimes we'll be successful, sometimes we aren't. But think it's just like those goals. Think about how many people go, well, maybe I won't. I can't. This looks like a long shot. I don't want to get my hopes up, and I just think that's counterproductive. But his quote was this, and you can have this one. He said,
Okay.
"The penalty for hope is disappointment." But let's put it on the table, Nikki. Of course. But what's the alternative? To not hope? So
Yes.
you skin your knee, you get knocked down, you dust yourself off, you step up, you put one foot in front of the other, you keep going. But I love the quote you gave about the brave because it's similar in fashion of, so what's your alternative? So get out there. Don't ever lose hope or avoid hope or be afraid to hope. Get out there and put your hopes out there and just understand, yep, there's a penalty, but be willing to accept the penalty. And
Exactly.
it's something I firmly believe as well.
Yeah. No, I'm fully behind you. And I think we do have to have those dreams, push them forward, make them happen for ourselves, and know that they can be achieved if we actually take that chance to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, got to. All right. How about and I think we've hit a couple. I might be digging down a little bit deep into your list here, but give me another lesson that you've learned in sports that can be translated into the business world. So we got a couple of them on the table. Give me one more. I'll move you off this dime.
Okay. Well, one thing I'll say is that everything I learned in sports can be translated into the business world. Absolutely everything I learned. And as I said earlier, the greatest thing you can gain from grassroots sports is those lessons. To learn about winning and losing, to learn about trying new things, to work as a team, to have the people behind you, to go out there and risk things, to overcome adversities. And for me, I really did learn that nothing's going to happen unless you make it happen. That hard work really does pay off. You can't go out and expect, there's so many people that ask me after my injury, like, who was the doctor you saw? What was the surgery you had? What was the medicine you took? And to be honest with you, it was because I went and put hard work in and built up the muscles in my back in order to come back.
Yeah.
Um, if you put in that hard work, it is going to pay off. And so we have to go out there and push ourselves again and again. And anytime I've worked hard, I have found that I've gotten the results. The people who do have success at the Olympics Games, the people who do have success in the business world, are the ones there that arrive early. They're the first ones there and the last ones to leave. And if you put that work in, I promise you, you will get the results.
Yeah. And you hear these, famous stories of Steph Curry and some of these athletes that we look at and go, wow, what a natural, what a gift. Yeah, he's the first one in the gym, the last one out of the gym. Gee, what a coincidence. What's the one of the oldest quotes out there? The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes.
It's
Thomas Jefferson.
is that Jefferson?
Yes.
Thank you for getting me. It's one of those thinking, I don't know where that one came from, but I know it's been out there a long time, longer than I
Yes.
thought. But yeah, the heart, it's amazing. But you work and, in a sport, and we were talking about that in terms of golfers, you work in a sport that, at least from our eyeballs, looks like you're kind of alone. You win an individual medal. You don't win a team medal. Do you think that you would have learned more if you had been part of an actual, and I know we have a team around you, but on a team, like the hockey movie you were talking about Herb Brooks, amazing moment with a actual team. Would you have learned more? I mean, how does that play out in terms of with you?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I consider myself a team sport player.
Yeah.
I think of the fact that I had teammates. There was one year we were all training, and there was a friend of mine who didn't want to do the workouts with the team. He wanted to do them on his own. And it gave him more time in the gym. It was able to get there when he wanted to, and he was a great athlete. And as the year progressed, he wasn't improving at the same rate the rest of the team was. And it wasn't just because they had someone to spot them for the actual activities they were doing, it was because we were each pushing each other. Jerry over there is lifting those weights. Why can't I? And it's the same in the business world. If someone's having that success, you start seeing, why can't I do that? This is something that I can push myself forward to. And so having those teammates around me, it really helped push me because I see them at the same level I am. I see that we all are pushing each other, and we have to make sure that we work as a team. If I don't rely on my coach, I'm not going to be landing these jumps. If I don't listen to the doctors, the physical trainers, I'm not going to have the physical ability to go out there and compete. And there's no way at the CEO of a top company, he's an individual. He's not at the same level as everyone on his team. But if he doesn't have the people behind him, he's not going to have that success. And so that's why when I was standing on the podium at the Olympics listening to the anthem play,
Yeah.
I thought of every single one of those people that were with me. And I was standing up there with a world of people on the podium, whether they're actually there or not.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought in the part about training. We forget about that. We just see you go down the mountain, you flip in the air, you land, hug a person or two. We forgot about this team that you're training with, in a sense. Uh, it's funny. I actually swim a lot. And it's not when you swim in laps, and then I do open water swims, things like that. You don't really have a whole lot of conversations in the water. My head goes in the water. It doesn't come out until, for another hour and change. But I never took a class at a gym, an actual, a mashup class of, strength training, spinning, something like that, till about 8 or 9 years ago. And I always walk by going, look at those knuckleheads, what, they can't train alone. The I never train alone now. There is the camaraderie, absolutely, to what you said. I work a lot harder when I've got someone behind me, in front of me, and to my right and my left. And I'm actually probably shouldn't dialing up the weight a little bit more. I am working, and so I just think it's psychologically natural, in a sense, that of course we're going to work a little bit harder. And it's interesting, the case study you brought up with that one individual who is getting in early, but doesn't quite have that. I think it's almost an unconscious push that we're just
Right.
not aware of. All right, I got one more
Right.
question for you, and I'll let you go. You interviewed, and I was looking over your book. It's just a collection of amazing stories, amazing individuals, I'm sure this changes by the day, but could you cherry pick one of your favorite stories or lessons from the book that you got from, one of those individuals that you interviewed?
That's like saying, do you have a favorite child?
I'm just okay. I'm correcting it. Just your favorite child today. And don't tell the kids. Okay.
Oh gosh. You know, I think there were so many incredible stories. From a blind man who climbed Everest to a man that was in the 95th story of the trade towers when they went down, to a little boy who had no arms and no legs. I think maybe the most moving was a military hero. And I didn't speak to him, but I spoke to his parents and I spoke to his captain. And they talked about how he dove on a grenade to save the rest of the people in his squad. And listening to them talk about their son, to talk about their teammate or the person who was in the troop with them, and the sacrifices he made, was incredibly moving. And I had so many people that were part of this book that added so much. There's lessons, I think, from 40 different people. And the book is When Turtles Fly, Secrets of Successful People Who Know How to Stick Their Necks Out. And each of them shared their story of how they were able to stick their neck out. And this story that I told, you actually don't know until the end that the gentleman didn't make it. But he was definitely someone who would stick his neck out for anyone around him. And hearing that love from the people around him really made him seem like a hero, not only in their eyes, but mine as well.
Yeah. Yeah. When Turtles Fly, Secrets of Successful People Who Know How to Stick Their Necks Out. I've seen that book on Amazon. It's looking good. We need to get a few more reviews on that one, folks. And people know Pocket Sized Pep Talk Nation. Write some reviews. So grab a hold of that book and see it through. Make one of your goals, not just to read that book, but to have the kindness and generosity, put a nice review on that as well. Nikki, how do people get a hold of you? I know you've got a speaking career. You're out there on the road. You're a road warrior like Rob Jollis. How do we get you out there?
They can go to my website, which is nikkistone.com, which is nikkistone.com. They have my contact information on there. They can see things through my web channels that are all listed within my website. And I encourage people to follow me because I will love to share. I have a motivational minutes page that I also put together. And I'll have you put it, the actual links within the titles below so that you can share that with people. And it's just a minute of motivation you can get every morning to make sure you have that inspiration throughout your day.
Sounds like a plan to me, a good plan. And I like the fact they're nice and quick, nice and easy. Let's take one with us, hold on to it, and make it a habit. Nikki Stone, I am thrilled to have had an opportunity to speak to you. You're every bit as inspirational as I had anticipated, and then some. I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Rob, it was my pleasure. Happy to meet you and speak with you today. And anything I can help with in the future, please just let me know.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.